Welcome to our weekly president's meeting. It is last day in May. Woo! Remember we said get through April? Remember educating it, just get through April. Get through April and the world's going to come back to life sometime in May. Well, it has. I know we feared it. I know it may not have come back exactly the way you wanted it or at the pace that you wanted it, but we're here. All 50 states are open. All 50 states are open. Okay, Kelly, I'm not so sure. I'll read that one. Well, I'll let Julia read that one aloud. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've got some good ones already. So please put what was your pleasant surprise into the chat box. Just put the cursor over your video, and you'll get a little sideways hamburger menu, little ... Click on that and just put your note into the chat box if you wouldn't mind. Or if there's any other questions or comments, and when Rob and Charisse come on, you can put your questions in there as well. So, okay. So first things first, let's talk about what's new, what's the latest and greatest. Number one, most of the trends as far as hospitalizations, as far as deaths, thankfully are trending downward on a national level. Yes, there's some states that are still holding steady, some that are seeing some spike, and that could be argued whether they're just testing more now, whether there's just more awareness, whether they're on top of it. But for those states that are still have a negative trend, meaning it's going up in the wrong way, we hope for them to catch up with the rest of us and start going in the right direction. So now the economy has opened, and you can expect that the economy will not close. So, yep. So Chandra, you might want to close your camera, or yeah, there you go. And so 50 states are opening. They will not be closing again. This whole idea that we're going to close here, we're going to close there, what you're going to find, and they're already starting to do it, is they're trying to protect and shield and secure the vulnerable. Those parts of the economy you might see some changes in, but most states are realizing positively that by opening, there has not been any negative trends to date. So that's really good. Our jobs as business owners, our jobs as product and service providers is we need to instill confidence in the client that we have on our two clients, our outward facing client and our internal client. Outward facing client is our customer who buys from us. Our internal client is our employee or our internal team. We need to instill confidence in our paying customers and our vendors and employees that we have a safe and compliant and sanitized workspace. Okay. So, and so we need to instill confidence in them so that we are not either the reason why things go backward, or we don't violate any of their policies. Because as we talked about, the Office of the Future is going to have restrictions against all other restrictions. If you can mute everybody, there you go. So restrictions against deliveries, random, FedEx, UPS, Amazon showing up, okay, and you being there. Right, so we talked about touch-free, contact-free delivery, but we need to make sure we are instilling confidence in the client that we are ready, open, and safe for business. Because remember, your pre-COVID message is going to change post-COVID. You can't just flip the sign from closed to open and say, "Hey, I'm ready for you now." So what? We've all been in quarantine for 10 weeks.
Everybody who's on the
10 weeks.
Going to the Zoom link.
Right. Okay, so I think we have some people coming over.
That was sent out last week. And if you need that information, hold on. I'll try to get it into the chat for you.
Okay, great. I think Randy's on the other line. Thank you, Randy. We have some people who went to the other. We have people who went to the other meeting. So let's bring them on over here. Thanks, Randy.
Carl, I can mute all, but you might have to unmute yourself after I do it now.
Okay, go for it.
Oh, you
All right,
got it.
all right, thank you. I'm unmuted. Cool. So, great. Thank you for that, Julia. So just check in with Randy because I think a bunch of people logged into the other conference line, Julia. Just make sure they're making their way over. Thank you. And so your post-COVID message is not going to be the same. After 10 weeks, I got to tell you, after 10 weeks in quarantine, shelter in place and all that, my expectations of my service providers is higher. It's not less. In my way of thinking, you've had 10 weeks to prepare for me. Now, I know that's not really true. You were, filing for PPP and trying to figure out how to stay open and survival, and you let off some of your employees, so you're the only one in the office, so you're working great guns. But just think about the general population out there. They don't know what you've gone through, and they've got problems of their own. If you're a bagel shop, they are not going to be happy with you if you run out of bagels. If you're a service provider, you're a law firm, an accounting firm, they're not going to hear that, oh, well, I can't get to that because I'm busy. Busy? You've had 10 weeks to think about me. You're busy now? Come on. Okay? So we have to make sure that our message to the market is going to be timely, very current and relevant to the mood of the buyer now. Okay? They're coming out, and if they're patronizing you now, right, that means they want you. They've been thinking about you. They're looking forward to being with you. Just make sure you're fully prepared for them. You want to get open. We want to stay open, but we also want to make sure that our message resonates. Okay? So as we do every week, I take a couple things that I think are relevant from last week, bring them over to this week as a reminder. Okay? So look at number 2 here. I changed that line. Digital delivery of our meetings and our services. And I get it. A lot of us are zoomed out here. We're not fully into, the digital meeting. But if you look at what is likely to come out with the hybrid workforce, rotating office hours, rotating days, those that are vulnerable, not coming into the office, either to work or to be the recipient of your services, you're going to have this hybrid environment. So part of that means make sure that your office is digitally ready. And here's what that means. More cameras, more screens. Okay? So make sure that if you've got that computer that doesn't have a plug-in camera, you may want to get that. You're going to have meetings where if I've been to your office, you know what this is like. We're having a meeting at the boardroom. I take a laptop, I put it at the end like somebody sitting in the chair, I put it on, and whether we're on Skype or GoToMeeting or whatever other video chat platform, we're talking to somebody like they're there, right? That's gonna be the way for the next year and a half. So let's make sure that you're thinking ahead to how you're going to be able to do that. You're going to have to make your work environment friendly to the remote worker, okay? And that's what's going to kind of lead us into talking to Rob and Charisse, because as we've been saying, if it happens on a screen, it happens just about anywhere. And if it's a recurring task, it can be outsourced. I mean, there's more to it than that, but there is, those are the 2 guiding principles that gets the conversation started. So digital is here to stay. Now, I got to tell you, I can't wait to get outside. Had a meeting at Todd and Steve's office yesterday. Fantastic. Great to get out. The only bummer is Todd and Steve showed up. Otherwise, it was great.
I don't think Steven's on. We could talk truthfully about him now. I don't think Steven's here today.
Oh, Steve's not here. Oh, let's talk about him. Let's talk about Steve, right? So, so we've got to just be prepared for that, right? And make sure that that we're ready for it, because as busy as you were now, and I understand for most of you as business owners, that's the majority of who's on this call. You've been busier than normal, right? Like Todd, we were talking about you before. You're taking all the calls. You and Steven are there every day, but not everyone else is in there every day. So you're the one running in the back when something needs. You're updating the board. You're running back to take the delivery. So I know in many ways, you all have been as busy, if not busier, than ever. I mean, my throat is hoarse. It's only 2 o'clock Eastern time. Guys, I've been at it for 8 hours, back to back to back to back to back. Not complaining, the pressure is a privilege, and I love the fact that I get to serve. But this has been the busiest 2 months of my professional career. Hands down, not even close. 14 hours a day, and that's not just the span. We all work long days, but the intensity of the last 10 weeks has been crazy, right? And I know many of you are experiencing the same. When your team comes back in whatever format they come, you're going to be just as busy. You're just going to go back to your normal responsibilities. Okay? Whereas you're not going to have, everybody's responsibility right now. Okay? So be thinking about the design, not just the layout, but the design, the workflow, and the experience in your office. It's the company that instills the most confidence in their clientele and can get that word out is the company that's going to experience the least amount of blips along the way, right? You don't want somebody contact tracing back to a meeting at your office and all of a sudden 13 people got sick because you held a 14-person meeting, right? I'm not suggesting you don't hold a 14-person meeting, but you want to be the one making sure you're following all the protocols, okay? All right, so we move on. Assuming we've done that, so a couple things I've been hearing. Let me go back. Today, the Orlando theme parks, SeaWorld, Disney, Universal, have announced that they're opening anywhere from mid-June to second week in July. That's just been announced. The National Basketball Association is talking to, I heard on a newscast that the NBA, National Basketball Association, is talking to Disney World about renting out the park to run the rest of their season at Disney World. All the teams, all the games, one place, okay? Because in the states that these teams are housed, they're not allowed to have fans, okay? So they're looking for creative ways to run their leagues. And if it pans out where that works, and Disney and a professional league is able to strike that deal, guess what's coming? Las Vegas, Branson, Missouri, the resort towns that have the capability to handle, large events or have a venue. Okay. So these are some of the trends that are coming. So if you think about that hybrid workforce for the fall, and these professional leagues, these are some of the trends. These are some of the things that we're reading about right now. Okay. So let's talk about the client-vendor relationship for a moment. In times of uncertainty, the buyer turns to subject matter experts. The buyer turns to people they know, like, and trust, and they are willing to, in some cases, pay more, but they will entrust them with more services. Okay, so this week, we laid the foundation for it last week, but this week's agenda is how do we widen the scope? Okay, one of our clients, marketing agency, right? And they're like, well, we're in the event business. That's all shut down. No, the event business isn't shut down. The in-person mass gathering event business is shut down, but the online product launch business is going strong. If you're a professional sports team and you have 60,000 season ticket holders that are all paying you a few $1,000s, if not tens of thousands of dollars a year, you're just going to leave them at home? Or are you going to create care packages and send them at-home tailgate party packages so they can have somewhat of an experience at home because they can't come to the stadium? Well, if you're a marketing agency, isn't that a way to widen the scope? Okay. So remember, we talked about it before. We're going to talk about cross-selling specifically today. and then we're going to bring Rob and Charisse on. But the way you qualify whether something, one of the ways that you qualify if something is within your core competency, I'll add one thing on here, is you use the qualifying questions of time, tools, treasure, and let's add talent to that list. Time, tools, treasure, talent. Time, can we learn it within 90 days, this skill, whatever it is, this new service we want to offer to somebody? Do we already have the tools, or do we have to do a major capital expenditure to bring the tools on board? Do we have the treasure, meaning from the time we tell our clients to do it to the time that we deliver and then get paid? Do we have the treasure to carry us for that period of time? And then ultimately the talent. Do we have the team or talent that we can quickly train and bring on board and handle these extra services? If you answer yes to these four, then the product or service that you're contemplating is within your core competency. We had a client kind of like Snap-on Tools. They're called Grip-On Tools from Grand Rapids, Michigan. They're an importer of tools, international importer of tools. They are also the largest distributor of poker chips in the country. What do tools and poker chips have in common? Nothing, except for they're made somewhere outside the United States. Do they have the time to learn how to import? Yes. Do they have the tools? Absolutely. They rent a containers every month. Do they have the treasure to carry it? They absolutely do. Do they have the talent, the import-export talent? Yes, they do. Those four match their qualifiers. Now they import poker chips. Some of you that pivoted and are selling PPE, that's why you're doing it. Todd's got hand sanitizer. That's why you're doing it. John Mullenhour doing coaching. That's why he's doing it. It's right in your core competency. So as soon as you start to think about what are some services that you could offer your clientele, go to them and we're going to talk existing customers right now, because that's your quickest path to cash right now, is let's go to them and let's ask them these questions. All right. There's a company we worked with called Twin Imaging some time ago. They're a government contractor, and they had a brilliant way. They did almost all their work for the Department of Defense, and more of their revenue is from negotiated work than bid work. And you say, wait a minute, I thought all work at the government is bid work. It is initially, but then every department has budget discretion and budget authority to authorize work as long as it's under a certain size. And Gina and her team became the master of the $5,000 project. So here's the scripts we created for her. So she gets in there, she's with her client, and then she says, and by the way, she does scanning and shredding. Scanning and shredding. Okay. So, Colonel, what's on your to-do list? We got this project over here. We need a training video shot. Is that something you do? Well, she thinks about it. I think that's something we can do. She knows what his budget authority is. It's $5,000. Guess how much it costs to shoot that training video? Take a guess. Anyone? Throw it out there. Take a chance. You never know. It always works out. Go out on a limb. That's where all the fruit is.
I guess $5,000.
It's $4,999.
$499. So the CFO, thank you, Bill, rescued us. And Todd, absolutely. See, you guys are ready. You guys are on your game today. You know, oh, Gina, you know what? I've been meaning to clean out that storage room and just get that stuff from here to there. Is that something you guys can do? Time, tool, treasures, talent. Yeah, we could do that. How much would it cost for you to move all that stuff from there to there? You're never going to guess what that came in at. $5,000 over. Oh, I have example after example. And once she got in, she was like a stick of dynamite, and she was doing all these side projects. So do the same with your clients. They are going to illustrate some things on their to-do list that you weren't even thinking is in your wheelhouse. Okay? Every one of you on here today are good at project management. I bet you clients have projects to be managed that you could step in and help out tomorrow. All right? I'm just throwing out some examples here. So what projects are on your board? What's in your inbox? What is in those files on the corner of your desk? Right? Yeah, that big stack. All right, that's now becoming the Eiffel Tower because you can't get to. What is on your plate right now? Let them tell you that list and then say that we can take off your list. Okay? Right now, you're in a period where your clients have a massive level of uncertainty, and right now they're not running to new resources. They want to stay with a trusted resource. So a quick way right now is try to cross-sell additional services based on their answers right here that you can run through the 4 qualifying questions. Okay? So we just did this exercise earlier today so here's another way to look at it. Take a look at all of your just-in-case inventory. Not your just-in-time inventory, but your just-in-case inventory. You know what just-in-case inventory is there for? In the event one of your clients has an emergency, something breaks, you can respond quickly, be Johnny on the spot, you're there. So if that's emergency stock, look at what's on the shelf and say, how often does my buyer purchase that inventory? How frequently? Has any of those buyers gone past that level of frequency? Call them and say, hey, listen, why wait? You're past your regular frequency. That might mean your odds or probability are that you're closer to a problem than that this inventory can take care of. Why don't we get in there and fix the problem before it becomes a problem? Okay, so I want to move on to Rob and Charisse, but so I just want to make sure everybody's cool with this. Here's your script for the week if you're not already using this. But this is a decision maker's call, meaning you're talking to a decision maker at a business. This is not somebody who just recommends a PO. You want to try to get to a person who has some decision-making authority because they are likely to tell you about projects or tasks that either they need it quiet on the QT, I need this done, right? Or, I laid off people that were doing this, but I got to have somebody tomorrow, to kickstart this. Not that you're hiding or doing anything illegal, but there's probably some discretion that's necessary. Okay. I was talking to Kevin in Belma yesterday. He has an outsourced bookkeeping. He does outsourced bookkeeping and interim CFO services. And he gets called in all the time. We didn't close out our books from last year. Please, you can't talk to anyone in that department. Come in very quietly, come in and let's bang this out. All right. So there's going to be instances like this. So use discretion as much as you can, then turn it over to your team. Okay. So any questions, thoughts, comments, clarifications on widening the scope before we move on? Julia, were there any questions?
No questions about that.
Okay. So what were some of the comments from what did you pleasantly or unpleasantly learn about yourself, the organization, professionally, or society during these last 10 weeks?
Okay, we only had one unpleasantly, and that was unpleasantly surprised by my productivity. Funny one. Surprised by how divisive the discussion about going back to work and coming out of lockdown has been. Pleasantly surprised by how much you can accomplish in your pajamas. Loved all the time with my family and kids and not commuting. Surprised by the markets that actually shut down to begin with. And then Stephen just says he loves to switch to Zoom.
Switch to Zoom, right?
Okay.
Yeah, for some people who were hoping to do more remote, this has been a blessing in some cases. I know, especially with Mel's business, with Magda and Jason, thinking about going to remote, COVID just trained everybody for you. So, and made it more acceptable. So, all right, cool. So, all right, guys. So let's talk a little bit. You know that I'm a big fan of outsourcing and looking at outsourcing first because we like to see as much variable cost in your business and the minimizing your fixed costs so you could be as nimble as possible, so you could scale up. But as you learned through COVID, you can scale down. And I'm not a big Apple user, but everyone loves to use Apple as the example. Like, well, you can't do that in my business, or my competitor, already occupies that manufacturing facility. So one of the largest capitalized companies in the world is designed in California, but not made in California. So they have decided what is in-house, what is outsourced. So, so Rob and Charisse, do I need to unmute them, Julia, or do you do that?
I
They
think
should
we're
be able
good to go.
Yeah, unmute themselves.
Good to go? All right, so Rob, hang in there one more second. So guys, I got the chance to meet Rob and his team over the last month. We are in the same mastermind group. They have a virtual staffing company. And what I did, Rob, is I took a couple of screenshots from your website, only because I know it's when you say, oh yeah, we ought to outsource that. No, that's great, Carl. If it's on a screen, it can happen anywhere, but what? What exactly? So these were where you have your services. I took examples of areas of their business that they can start thinking about, or they should be thinking about, at least considering, that outsourced, model. So Rob and Charisse are chief rock stars at Rocket Station. I met Rob, I think in October, right? And we had a chance to spend some more time in February. And they do virtual staffing at scale. So they'll take on major projects. They'll work virtually, and they'll build large teams, small teams too, but larger teams as well. And so I'll turn you over to Rob and Charisse, and you guys can tell us a little bit about, what are some things people should be looking for? What are some tips? What are some mistakes? What are things to stay away from? And just what you've learned, Rob, through being on both sides, the owner who has hired outsourced contractors, and that's how you got into your business. So go for it.
Yeah, Carl, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate everybody's time. This has been great. Totally agreed with everything that you said leading up. And the team's really enjoyed getting to work with you, Carl, and spending time with you. And I think the ultimate reason why we're here is because our business philosophy aligns with 7-Stage Advisors pretty parallel. We're pretty close in most of our views, and even in the way we design the front end part of our consulting, and the information that we provide people is pretty much in line with what you guys do at 7-Stage Advisors. So we're excited to be here, and just going to spend a few minutes with you guys. We have obviously nothing to sell or nothing to try to throw on you, but just in a few minutes, I understand that it can be hard to kind of go through everything. And outsourcing is a conversation that conceptually is pretty easy to understand. But when you think about how to apply it to your business specifically, as Carl was mentioning, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. Sometimes it's hard to think about how it could actually work for you, where efficiency opportunities are within your business, and then the steps to actually implement that. So whether you hire our teams or not, whether you use us, it doesn't really matter to us. Like I said, we have nothing to sell you. But if you want to spend some time with me and my team ever after this call, just spend a few minutes and talk about this. Happy to spend time with any of you. So nothing to sell any of you guys today. Just want to do a quick introduction, talk about a few of these concepts, and then happy to spend some additional time with anybody who's got additional questions or wants to talk about their business specifically, or deep dive into this any further. Is that fair, Carl?
Yeah, that's great, Rob. And what I would suggest, if any of you have questions or you're already thinking about it, because I know some of you are, or you're already doing some outsourcing, and you have a question, or you want Rob to clarify, or you just want a second opinion, by all means, put it in the chat box and we can do some Q&A at the end. So yeah, go for it, Rob.
Okay, do you mind if I share my screen? I just have a couple slides that help keep me on track here.
Sure, go for it.
Oh, it looks like I didn't do the update on Zoom. So it's showing a blank screen. All right, well, never mind. I'm sorry about that. You guys can't see my screen, can you?
We cannot. Unless
Okay.
you want to send me you quickly send me your slides and I'll put them up.
It's okay. I think we can do it. We'll just talk about a few of the concepts here. We've been in virtual staffing since 2013. We have helped over a couple thousand businesses since that time do a couple things. We are a two-trick pony. So it doesn't matter the department, as many of them are mentioned here, whether it's accounting, whether it's inside sales, whether it's customer support, marketing and branding. It doesn't really matter the vertical. We've been placing and staffing since 2013, and we do this in a very systematic approach, which is, I think, what Carl likes about some of our team and process is the way we put people through this approach. But we think that there's really two steps to being successful with teams, whether they're in-house, whether they're outsourced, whether you're doing the combination of contractors or W-2s or some kind of mix. There's really a couple steps that we think you absolutely have to have success. And Carl mentioned that anything on a phone or computer can be outsourced, and that's absolutely the case. Since 2013, we've been spreading that message that I'm actually in the Board of Advisors headquarters right now at Mike Calhoun's office where I actually met Carl. And most people, even when I met Carl in October, most people in Board of Advisors would tell me, yeah, I understand outsourcing. I understand how Dell uses it. I understand how some of the big box Fortune 500 companies use it, create a terrible experience for their customer base, don't take care of people the way we want to take care of people. Outsourcing doesn't represent our company the way we want to represent our company. And also, most people think that for the most part that virtual staffing is for low-level tasks. It's for small jobs. It's for the remedial, repetitive task in the business. It couldn't be anything of significance. It couldn't be anything that had any real importance in the day-to-day. Well, I think in the last 8 to 10 weeks, we've all learned that having a traditional office space is not required. And not only is it not required, it's not really necessary in any way. We have over 450 people under management at Rocket Station, and we have less than 12 people in an office every day in Dallas. In the last 10 weeks, we've had nobody in the office. So anything that's done on a phone or computer can be done by a remote team, and they can be located anywhere in the world and have every bit as the same efficiency that you would have with an in-house team. And what we would try to show you is that leveraging some of these resources, outsourcing, will actually increase your productivity and grow your bottom line at the same time, which has kind of been the impossible thing for all of us as business owners forever. Trying to grow and scale a business, it takes a ton of capital and investment into labor and employee costs, which increases frustration, hassle, and then also exposes you from a risk management standpoint, because HR liability is one of the biggest liabilities any of us face in our day-to-day. So what is different about 2020? Nothing really. There's nothing new about right now than what's been available for the last several years. The only difference is that people are a lot more open to these concepts and open to the conversation, because we've all been kind of forced into thinking about remote teams and virtual staffing the last several weeks. So the way we think that staffing works, whether it's an in-house team or you're outsourcing, it's a two-step process for everyone. The first is to take a step back and do what we call just a discovery phase. And that is evaluating your current systems and processes. And we spend a lot of time talking to Carl about systems and processes, but we think having documented scopes and process maps and training materials for everything that happens in your business is the foundation to having a successful business. It creates transparency, it creates alignment, and then creates opportunity for you to set KPIs and manage teams more effectively. Most people that we deal with have problems, have stress in the day-to-day. They hire team members, they throw them at the problem, then they get frustrated because they don't really enjoy their teams and they think people are hard to manage. We think if you start with the discovery phase, you document the process, whether that's bookkeeping or marketing or customer support or your inside sales, that process needs to be documented. So Charisse works in our sales team. She's part of business development. Our sales guys get all the credit. Greg Brooks and some of the team, they get to be the pretty face. They show up on Zoom. They conduct the sales call, and they get all the credit for the success that happens in the business. But the truth is, Charisse and her team are really doing everything, from setting the meetings to sending the invites, the Zoom meeting links, the back and forth. We did an internal study to figure out, in email alone, how many correspondence take place before one meeting is set. And it's 7 to 9 emails to set one meeting for our sales department. So our sales team is able to average 8 to 12 meetings a day, but none of the actual sales team is responsible for confirming those meetings, setting those meetings, confirming people are going to show up, taking notes, taking minutes, or really fulfilling any of that process. Our sales team simply shows up. The only way for Charisse and our employees to really be effective is to have documented systems and processes. So Charisse has a roadmap that's built from day one before she ever starts working for Rocket Station. We've got our systems and processes documented. So we think that is step one. And we don't think that there's a process in your business, including logging into Zoom and the most basic things, that there shouldn't be a documented system or scope written for. That way, everybody is aligned in the entire organization. So we think that's step one. Once you've identified everything that's happening in your business, it becomes much easier to find pain points and identify task management plans to put teams in. So I mentioned sales. It's just an easy example because most of us overload our sales team. We expect too much from them. We want them to be great closers on the phone, and we also want the CRM to be updated perfectly and all the data to be perfect. It's usually doesn't work that way. Your sales team is doing great to keep mustard off their shirt and look presentable on the call, much less take good meeting notes and then follow up with all the promises they're making. So that role is very different than an accountant or bookkeeper. So we have a couple hundred bookkeepers that work at Rocket Station. That's a different type of person than is going to be on the phone and doing sales. So instead of hiring somebody to go solve a problem, we first identify the problem, create scopes and system maps. That tells us the type of person that we should hire for that role. And then we go find someone like Charisse or whoever it may be to fill that role. So at Rocket Station, we're a two-trick pony. We build systems and processes, training materials, resources for people to be able to use within their business, within the day-to-day. And then we're a dedicated staffing provider that can do any back office support within your business, from inside sales all the way to back end accounting. And it's a pretty simple process. Carl's been through it. We just think that it starts with clarity and alignment. So that is the most difficult stage for any of us to go through, is to just slow down. And I think Carl would agree with me there, is to take a few minutes. And I think that was kind of the point of that last slide. There is, I think, 3 of the bullet points were just take a few minutes to evaluate current opportunity that's available within your business before you try to go deeper. And we think that's absolutely the case no matter what you're doing. And so that's Rocket Station. That's what we do. I don't know, Carl, if that kind of gives enough of an intro, but we're here to answer any questions, help anybody in any way we can.
Yeah, so let me ask you a couple questions, Rob. So if somebody hasn't started process mapping at all, or they're looking at their business and they say, okay, I get it. We're a traditional business, product, service, small mid-market company, and we're looking for areas that we could get immediate benefit from outsourcing. One, where would you start with the process? What part of the business would you start on with process mapping and then ultimately outsourcing? Where would you suggest they start?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head by finding the point of highest and greatest return, where the efficiency opportunity is right from the beginning. And for everybody, that'll look a little bit different.
Yeah, but in your experience, in your experience though, where do you see companies look first that get good return on their investment?
It's always around maximizing current employees or current staff first. So if you have a butt in a seat, if you have a W-2 employee, if you have a contractor that's currently working for your business, the first thing is to maximize that individual and that opportunity. So a sales team, very common for sales teams to be responsible for a lot of things besides just closing. So we set up sales teams to have the support to make sure that sales teams are more
Wow.
efficient, can actually close. Customer support journey is something that we spend a ton of time on. Companies are usually really good at acquiring customers. They're not usually really great at servicing those clients. We all want a few things. We're in a review culture, and demand and expectations have never been higher. We all want a personalized response to our problem. We want that solved immediately. And it's really hard to be able to put the resources in place to meet client or customer demands and provide the service and meet expectations. So the customer service journey, from if you've got software, from initial walkthroughs, product development, getting people comfortable with the initial intros. Nobody does a good job of onboarding new clients and customers, much less create a really strong retention experience. So the customer support, the back end, anytime the phone needs to answer, anytime the phone's ringing, needs to be answered, anytime chat's coming through the chat box or emails are blowing up, we're really good at that. Accounting is something that people seem to struggle with, and hire teams of Americans to do most of their monthly reconciliation. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to us. So we really do well in that. Anything, Carl, that you're willing to spend a few minutes with us and let our team build those process maps, we can absolutely make you more efficient in those areas.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say is, take somebody and look at the core or technical part of their job, and their non-core or non-technical part of their job. So for example, a salesperson, the rule of thumb is 80% of their time should be on sales, 67% of their time, it should be in front of a customer. And so that 20%, you say, let's get support operations around that salesperson so they could be doing more selling, get them up to 90, 95%, and you'll handle the support underneath it, so they can just, I call it arrive and drive. They arrive there, CRM is ready to go, my reports are there, I've got my link to my outsourced resource. They're like my right, I'm one side of the coin, they're the other, and I could do what I do best, and I hand it over to them, they hand it back to me.
That's exactly right, and that's a perfect example. So and that creates exponential opportunity just from that one efficiency point. So it not only frees up your sales team to be on more appointments and close more deals, you never have the time where your sales team is on a call and someone's not there, because there's nothing costing you more than the dead time appointment. And then all the correspondence back and forth to reschedule. No, that is such a waste of time and one of the most costly parts of an inefficient sales cycle. So by having sales teams that are just focused on those calls, they're more efficient, they can close better, and it frees up their emotional capacity to do what they're actually hired to do, instead of all the ancillary tasks which don't actually benefit them.
Great. What do you see as the biggest mistake people will make when they start considering outsourcing?
Yeah, so outsourcing, because you're not sitting across from people face to face, the assumption is that outsourcing operates like a computer, that you can set it and forget it. And that's just simply not true. Even though you're outsourcing, Therese may live in Manila, but she's still a human being. She still needs personal interaction. She still needs support. So we work really hard to make sure that the support and management structure is in place so that your teams can actually have success. Human beings aren't computers. They need some feedback from time to time.
Cool. Awesome. Were there any other questions? So Rob, one question was, do you create the job descriptions and do the mapping as well?
Yeah, so either side of it. Usually job descriptions come as a result of process mapping, because it identifies. So once you process map, you can get really clear about the actual task that you want to delegate to someone else, whether that's outsourcing or hiring internally. And yes, we are very good at creating those process maps and then subsequently creating the job descriptions.
Gotcha. Cool. So Rob, Sharice, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Any other questions, thoughts, comments for Rob and Sharice before they go? Okay, cool. All right, guys, thanks so much. So so again, I quoted the McKinsey article a couple of weeks ago, where McKinsey is now recommending to all of their clients that they evaluate what is truly a fixed expense and what can be moved to variable expense. so that you can flex your operations straight to the point of inefficiency. What it means is you're not trying to make it efficient, but you flex your operations all the way to the end where you say, if I move it one more, we'll be inefficient. So in other words, they want to make it as variable, and they want to outsource to the maximum while still maintaining your efficiencies. So, you know, COVID, as I said, it's created this new normal where all of us are on a screen right now. There's maybe forever, it may be forever, that there's always going to be part of your team that shows up on a screen and not in the office. I mean, that hybrid workforce, that hybrid office is likely here to stay. It is certainly here for the next 2 to 5 years. Absolutely. You can take that one to the bank. So as soon as you accept the reality that somebody is going to provide a service or a task to your business and they're going to do it on a screen, you then have to make the decision, what rate am I willing to pay, or do I want to pay for that? Rob, what sort of savings are your US-based customers realizing by outsourcing?
Yeah, so to give a direct example, is we have a company in Memphis that has 46 employees, and they have 22 of our team members, and they're saving $4.5 million a year in salary savings by our team members. So, but the point I want to make about that is those guys sent me a text this week about that, and that's why it's right on top of mine. But the reason they text me was, the point of the text was, hey, Robert, here's a tangible thing. We're saving $4.5 million a year in salary savings. But the reason we really value your company is the emotional capacity we get back from not having to manage and build those teams. So the energy that his in-house employees get back from having outsourced the things that we've taken off their plate is allowing their company to do things that they never thought was possible. So the last thing I'll say about that is most businesses are really good at their core competency. They're really, really good at understanding their product and usually pretty good at selling it. Most companies are not experts at back office support because that's not what they do. So if you don't know what average call handling time should be, what the average number of correspondents should be to set appointments, what the number of follow-up emails it takes and copywriting, and that we're workforce management experts, and we're happy to go through that with you. But identifying opportunities within your business, if you can't truly call yourself an expert in that phase of the business, then you're probably losing money because there's efficiency opportunities. There's experts available for fractions of what traditional employees cost, and can just blow up your efficiency.
Yeah. So, I mean, Apple's a great example. Is they're experts at product design. They're experts at building community. And what they're not fully experts at is making anything. Remember when the iPhone first came out? They had a lot of quality problems with the iPhone. The antenna, you would it would drop more calls. Your range wasn't as good. I mean, but they had a beautifully designed phone, right? They had to rely on other experts. Tesla right now is talking to General Motors about the possibility of GM building their cars for them because they can't keep up with capacity, and their quality issues are becoming a problem, So something to think about, guys, in your business. I wanted you to at least hear from somebody else, because I know I had put it out there. Yep. Okay, cool. And so I wanted you guys to at least hear from a different perspective. Rob and his team, great group over at Rocket Station. They've got a lot of experience all the way down for, like, again, placing one person to teams, but they're looking at what I like about their approach is they're looking at your workflow, not just saying we'll staff you a person. All right, both are effective services, but their approach is let's look at your workflow. As you know, many of us have had that conversation. So cool. So thanks, guys. If there's any other questions or any other thoughts, we'll put Rob's information and Rocket Station's information in the meeting notes when we send out the recording tomorrow. But so we'll wrap up on this point. If there's any other questions, comments, thoughts, please send them along. We've made a number of connections through our marketplace already. There's a number of Stumpy's Hatchet Houses that are now the proud owners of Kramer Industry hand sanitizers, as an example. One of our advisors had made a referral to 7 Stage, and we passed that along to Highspeco, and they might have a new business development resource for one of their companies. So some of the introductions are starting to take hold. There's some success stories already. So if here's the link. If you want to screenshot that, you're certainly welcome to. But in tomorrow's email, the link will be there. Let us know what introduction or type of what person in particular or type of person that you'd like to meet that would be instrumental in your business, and we'll look in our ecosystem and see where we can connect the dots. Okay. All right. So we made it, folks. Next month is June. I love it. All right. Right on. You know, we're out of quarantine pretty soon. And per your feedback, we're going to keep the call going weekly till the end of June, and then we'll reevaluate what the frequency is. If you have any other feedback or any other topics that you want to make sure that we cover, we are going to start getting into some topics over the next few weeks. Now, if you want to bring some of your staff or your team, these will be team friendly. Okay, because we're getting closer and closer to implementation, execution, you know, and because of the demand that's coming on your time and on your business's resources, it's going to be a bit of a stress test for the business operations. So we want to make sure that they are finely tuned as well. So have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you all on the next call.